Thanks, Sam. It's great to be here. 30 plus year career sounds very old.
I think it's way more than 30, but I thought 30 was like the right amount.
No, I'm 50 plus. Definitely not way more. Every time I hear that, I think, man, this guy's math is wrong. And then I'm like, yeah, no, actually, it's spot on.
Welcome to Topline, the podcast for the best founders, operators, and investors in B2B tech. Every week, AJ Bruno, Asad Zaman, and me, Sam Jacobs, will break down what's important for you to know to be the most well-informed professionals in the market.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. I believe this is episode 52 of Topline. We're really excited today. This is Sam Jacobs, CEO of Pavilion. I've got Asad Zaman, CEO of Sales Talent Agency, AJ Bruno, CEO of QuotaPath. And with us today is a special guest, David Obrand, the CEO of SalesLoft, one of the premier companies in the sales and marketing technology space. Currently, I believe, owned by Vista Equity Partners. David is a 30-plus year career veteran of B2B tech. He has worked at some of the best companies in the world. He was early in his career. I believe he started off as an IC at Salesforce before rising up the ranks to become a vice president. He became chief customer officer at Yammer and was there when it was acquired by Microsoft. Also spent some time at Valor Equity Partners as an investor and an operating partner, and I guess a GP, and is now the new CEO of SalesLoft as of, I guess, a couple of months ago, or you'll tell us.
Over a year.
Oh, amazing. Yeah. All right. So
almost a year and a half now.
So there you go. Welcome to the show. We're really excited to have you.
Thanks, Sam. It's great to be here. 30 plus year career sounds very old.
I think it's way more than 30, but I thought 30 was like the right amount.
No, I'm 50 plus. Definitely not way more. Every time I hear that, I think, man, this guy's math is wrong. And then I'm like, yeah, no, actually, it's spot on.
1991. I was adding it up. 2024. That's 1991.
Well, he has the year he started his career in the back on the whiteboard. It says 1989 clearly right there.
No, college 91. Well, actually, yeah. But anyways, it's great to be here.
We're excited to have you. And Asad's normally the person that drives the agenda. So we'll kick it over to Asad. Asad.
David, it's great to have you. And maybe the place to start is actually a broad question around your industry, because it's just going through such an interesting moment in time. If you think about the world of go-to-market technology, there were a lot of companies solving various different problems, right? You had call recording, you had sales engagement, you had these RevOps type of solutions that Clary was taking to market. And what we have seen over the last year or two is a real shift where companies that used to be friendly and collaborators are now essentially competitors, because they've all kind of figured out that we need to broaden the solution that we're taking to market, provide more value to our customers to be able to hold on to them and expand these relationships. And so the category is now going through this transition where everybody is doing a lot of the things the others used to do, and it's becoming more competitive. And so would love just to start with your general thoughts on what's playing out in your world, as well as you look at this category, the eventual winner or winners, what are the things that they need to get right to be in that cohort?
Well, I just started with an easy question.
Liam.
Absolutely. It's a great question. So look, I think as we look back at the last, call it 6 years or so, we had low interest rates. We had a lot of access to capital, and that afforded a couple things. It afforded companies to gain access to capital very quickly with, niche ideas that historically those ideas would have created a small product that then would have needed additional investment and grown into a larger product, sometimes a platform. What happened in the last 5 or 6 years, though, was products actually became companies very quickly and very early on. And that hasn't happened very often over the last 30 years. Part of that was because of those low interest rates and access to capital, companies actually had the ability to buy technology at a rate they've never had before. It's why you see very sort of convoluted and bloated tech stacks out there in sales and marketing and in other areas of business. But what you are seeing now as interest rates go up, as spend starts to get consolidated, is these companies that were able, to gain traction with a very lightweight product are not able to sustain that momentum anymore. So they need to find a home. It doesn't mean that the technology or the product that they built adds no value, but it doesn't necessarily now add enough standalone value to merit actually generating enough revenue against that value to actually sustain an entire business. So part of this is you are seeing good niche technologies actually have to find a home in a larger platform. So that's one piece of it. The other piece of it, and we've seen this with, both the acceleration of AI, but really the accessibility of AI now, has opened up an entirely new type of market for technology. And if we talk about our space in particular, sort of the broader sales revenue orchestration space that is now starting to lean over into aspects of marketing as well, you're seeing exactly what you said. You had companies that built disparate pieces of technology, and that became commoditized very quickly. So they lost differentiation, and they had to then either go build or acquire to regain differentiation. And that's absolutely what we are seeing today in the revenue orchestration space. Both consolidation and with the acceleration of AI, and most companies in the space that SalesLoft plays in have had some degree of AI in their product or platform for several years. But it now needs to be pervasive throughout the platform. And so you are seeing a race in a couple of areas. Many companies that started in this sales engagement, now revenue orchestration space, sold primarily to tech and sold very much into commercial and sort of mid-market size companies. The race now, and I think what will end up defining and crowning the winner in our space, will be the company that can branch outside of tech as an industry sector and move into the enterprise in a sustainable way. This market will crown a winner, I believe, in the next 18 to 24 months, if not sooner. This TAM is far larger than $10 billion. But this space will be won in the enterprise. Commercial is a very important space, for sure, but the winner will be determined by who can actually dominate in the enterprise.
Are they going to try to win that enterprise market hand-to-hand combat, hire, go-to-market team, do the product marketing right, and then go yourselves and try to get it? Or do you think an acquisition of a company that was already doing well in the enterprise is going to accelerate somebody's ability to get that market and get strong over that?
So look, it's a great question. There are a myriad of reasons to do an acquisition. One is to gain market share, but there is nobody in this revenue orchestration space that has a broad footprint in the enterprise. SalesLoft has done incredibly well in the enterprise, but it's not as though you can go buy a company that already dominates the enterprise in revenue orchestration. It doesn't exist yet. Now, I think there's a bigger sort of interesting implication to the question you asked, which is going it alone or not. To win in the space, to win in the enterprise, to win through, a ability to build a technology moat around the business and all of that will be very hard to do by yourself. And part of the reason why is what we are building, certainly here at SalesLoft and other companies in the space, will require a new muscle in organizations. When you think about it, go-to-market organizations today, we always talk about the art of sales, the science and art of sales. But sales has very much always been about a level of basic training for the role, and then a broad sort of loose set of structures around how you think about deals or opportunities. But the way you engage every day as a seller has really been left to the seller's choosing of how they do that. It's very stylistic. What we are seeing now with technology is that we can actually start applying science to the art of sales as well. But whether it's art or art and science together, these platforms are driving a different set of behaviors in organizations they have not done before. Bringing workflow to an organization and tethering hundreds or thousands or tens of thousands of sellers to a common set of behaviors, we've just never done that in the industry before. And so it's very hard to build the technology, market it, sell it, and drive all of the change management required by yourself. And so for us at SalesLoft, we have what we call sort of three pillars or three legs to the business that we believe are paramount to dominate this market. The first of which is pace and quality of innovation. There's a lot to build, there's a lot to acquire, there's a lot to consolidate. The pace with which you bring value to your customers is really important right now. The second of which is customer success. And customer success is a fascinating concept. We created that role and that function, 19, 20 years ago at Salesforce. There's a small group of us. We were doing big transformational deals, and there wasn't a role that existed like it. But the purity of that role originally was somebody that deeply understood technology, but also deeply understood business process and could marry those two together and constantly iterate with the customer. Over time, CSMs and the CS organization has ended up being a catch-all for everything that, engineering doesn't do, support doesn't do, sales doesn't do, services doesn't do. It just falls into the CSM bucket. CSM in revenue orchestration has an opportunity to be reimagined and take on a very different role. When you think about revenue orchestration platforms, you sell to CROs and head of RevOps. And it is very business process driven. And so CSM should start to look a lot more like the personas they serve. And when you start building a customer success organization that embodies a lot of the same competencies and experiences as RevOps leaders have, I think you actually get out from under, sort of the old definition of CSM, and you can revitalize it in a way that will add tremendous value. But the third leg of the stool is the ecosystem. And that's where you have to bring a community along to help you establish leadership in the market. And two reasons why. One, they can help with change management, business process transformation that CSMs do. But the other is they can help with innovation. Because if you're a customer-centric org and you are building for the customer, and by customer, I mean the big capital C customer, not whatever every single little customer wants, but you want to build for the market that you are serving so you get repeatability in the capabilities you deliver. There will always be more the market wants than you can organically build, and that's where the ecosystem comes into play. So the ecosystem can actually massively accelerate and amplify everything we are doing around innovation and around driving customer success. So I think you need all three of those. You can't do it alone.
David, that was really well laid out. And a lot of the things you've touched upon are things we've reiterated just in general in own episodes. A couple of things I wanted to kind of double click on.
Yeah.
Specifically, you said very early in the conversation, you mentioned marketing.
Yeah.
And I know that it was throwback. I'm like really curious, is that a horizontal expansion that you all are playing in the revenue orchestration, or was an interesting comment that just felt like in the go-to-market and the expansion into marketing. And I say this as someone who was a MarTech founder at a previous company and now in the go-to-market, and just interested in more that category expansion horizontally, like the HubSpots of the world who have gone marketing to sales. And maybe you're thinking about something the other way around.
Yeah, I think it's a little different. I mean, what HubSpot's done is incredible. But and some of the leaders there have done an incredible job. The guy that recently left there, that was the president of go-to-market, Rob Giglio, brilliant go-to-market, sort of master. But for us, it's a little bit different. The vision at SalesLoft since the beginning, far predating me, has been to transform the profession of sales. But when we look at the evolution of the space and the evolution of our platform, going from a basic workflow function to now a full lifecycle platform across the entire customer journey, pipeline through renewal, what you realize in there is if you want to transform sales, you can't ignore the buyer. There's two parties here. And so you've got to be able to deeply understand both sides of the equation. And AJ, as you know, as a MarTech founder, how technology has evolved has massively changed the buyer journey. It used to be that if you were great at cold outreach, you could get into opportunities with first mover advantage. That is so hard to do now. If you listen to Gartner, Forrester, or any of the other analysts, they'll tell you that buyers are doing more than 60% of their due diligence before they ever even engage with the seller. So when we think about moving into marketing, what we really are thinking about is moving into that buyer behavior realm, because it's incredibly important to build a revenue orchestration platform. It's all about a workflow foundation and then being able to capture signals, understand how those signals translate into insights, which a lot of companies can do. But then the hard part comes in. Those insights have to translate into actions, but the actions have to be correlated to tangible outcomes. If not, you're just creating more work for your go-to-market teams without knowing if that work is actually going to drive any outcome. And if it doesn't, your users are going to lose all credibility in the actions and in the insights that drive those actions. And so for us, as we really looked at this space and how it's evolving, we realized one of the biggest advantages we can give to our customers is to capture that buyer behavior before their competitors even know it's happening, and bring those rich signals in to the platform, and then understand how those signals translate into insights and actions and outcomes. So for us, we felt like anybody who is building in the space and does not natively be able to capture that buyer intent is going to be missing out. Now, that being said, there are a lot of great intent providers out there, and you have to have rich APIs. So whomever your customer is using for intent data has to seamlessly plug in to these revenue orchestration platforms. But I don't believe that building a robust platform should allow you to push all of the obligation to your customers to bring in that intent data. We have to have some of it natively in the platform itself. That was the reason for our Drift acquisition. And as you look at how Forrester has recently defined the revenue orchestration platform space, there is an entire section in there focused specifically on capturing buyer behavior.
Yeah. I think the thing that you're saying that resonates, and obviously the Drift is a part of this conversation, is really around the enterprise and solving for the enterprise. And that's something that you said, and I was like, oh, that I haven't heard another CEO say that out loud, because you saw last year the ceiling that some of the massive players in the space are starting to hit. And I'll use SalesLoft, I put in that category of massive player, but you have the Gong and the Clarys that we mentioned,
yep,
where it's going to be paramount to really kind of like break through that and do it in a way. And that's why the marketing piece of it really caught my ear, because if you think about the enterprise, then that's like those two get kind of tied hand in hand, especially as it relates to intent. And you can do some really interesting things in solving customer problems and customer value at the enterprise when you tie those two things together.
It seems like there'll be within this category war like two approaches, right, that are quite different. One is going to be the enterprise, which I find very attractive. But the other approach will be to go to non-tech buyers and try to convince them at the mid-market levels, right? Like somebody's going to say, we know how to get mid-market and commercial clients to buy our stuff. They like it. We know how to work with them. Here are all these other industries that have no idea that we exist. Like an oil and gas company does not know who Gong is. And so the other calculation could be going into these other verticals.
So to that point, though, I think David's last point around ecosystem, we can't do it ourselves, is around distribution. And how do you get into a buy? Like, how does an enterprise buy a classic go-to-market tool when this isn't really in their wheelhouse to look at or to view? And I think what will be key to the one player that wins will be distribution. And how do they enable the other players in the ecosystem to win? So
yeah, I think it's awareness, distribution, and consumption is where we really think about that ecosystem, right? Driving awareness for it. You know, Asad, to your point, if you are in an industry that has historically been maybe late stage adopters, to your point, you might not know about all the vendors at play here, but there's a level of awareness out there that has to happen, and we have an obligation as the vendor to drive a lot of that. But I think the partners in the ecosystem can play a big role in driving awareness. Let's skip distribution for 1 second to consumption, and then we'll come back. So consumption is key again, because customers have to build a new muscle here. And this is not something that you just drop in and leave. It's something you constantly want to be iterating on, because these systems are learning systems. And we now, through technology, have the ability to constantly turn the knobs and pull and push the levers to optimize how our business processes work to yield the best outcomes. And so that's an ongoing requirement. Ultimately, companies will build the muscle to do that themselves, but they will need some help. Now, the distribution piece, AJ, is a great call out. Here's the challenge with distribution at the stage that any of us are at. And look, we're all of similar size right now. If you look at, the two other big competitors in addition to us. But the challenge with distribution, whenever you sell something, if it's not positioned properly, it makes consumption really, really hard. And if you have third parties out there that are distributing and representing your platform, your product, whatever it might be, and they misrepresent it, it can do significant damage to the company brand. And so we will take a very guarded approach on distribution because it's all around setting expectations. We want to do it with our ecosystem partners, but I'm not sure, for example, I would set up a reseller channel today. One of the really big learnings that we have brought to this business over the last year and a half, we brought Sam Loveland in, who was previously, this is the third company she and I have done together. We did Salesforce, Yammer. Most recently, she spent 5 years at ServiceNow, leading their global customer success team. But a big shift we made for this company when we arrived here is we actually brought post-sales and customer success into the pre-sales motion. So the way that we engage with our prospects, once we go through, the typical early stage qualify out, qualify in, we learn about their business, we let them teach us. We then teach them how the platform itself works. But then we go into a very collaborative conversation where we actually build out in a production environment aspects of what they are looking for in their requirements. And we do that with the services team and the customer success team in the room. And that allows for no weird handoffs from pre-sales to post-sales. The people that have to deliver on the implementation are setting the expectations, and the people that have to drive consumption are in the room from the very beginning.
Yeah, that's great.
That's a hard thing to do in a distribution model with third parties. So we want to make sure that we not only are doing that ourselves, but we're writing the playbook on it that then we can take to the ecosystem partners around distribution and teach them how to do this, so they could actually set the customer up for the best outcome.
David, it's interesting because you said earlier that the way we have go to market, like the things have changed, obviously. Yeah. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it feels like what you're saying is a little bit contrarian to the ways that some people are investing in like AI or generative AI, where it's offloading a lot of this to others, whether it's partners or AI itself. And you're bringing this back in-house to handle internally, it sounds like.
Yeah, this is a new space. It's a new motion. Individuals are going to bet their careers on making these types of purchases. Heads of RevOps and CROs will basically be betting on their tenure in that company on how these platforms actually perform for them and drive consistency and repeatability in their go-to-market motion.
That's a really good point.
It's a great point.
It's a big deal, and it's new. It's not as though SalesLoft has built some new version of something that's existed for 20 years. I can't say, AJ, it's just like that thing you have today. It's just mobile and prettier. It's not. It's a new thing. And so we have got to teach, all of us in this space have an obligation to teach not only the customers, but the ecosystem how to best do this. And look, when it comes to AI, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry to interrupt. I love hearing you talk. And the question I have is, the three of us are at earlier stage businesses than SalesLoft. And AJ has done successfully diversified out of tech, but Asad and I basically haven't yet. And so for us, sales engagement, revenue orchestration, definitely a better category name. So I'll go with it if you want me to. I'm happy to support you. But I
appreciate that, Sam.
Yeah, I'm here for you. But for us, some of this technology is old hat at this point. We've been obsessing about, at the early stages of tech innovation when it relates to go to market. We've been obsessing about how to go to market, how to get somebody's attention, how to coordinate and orchestrate all of these activities. We've been doing this for a very long time, at least from our perspective. And it's fascinating to hear you talk about, again, based on your background, sounds like a fantastic hire from SalesLoft's perspective, entering into the enterprise where it's brand new to them. And to your point, you have to teach consumption, which is why customer success is so important. How much behind, and I don't necessarily want to use that word, but if you think about, early adopters, the mid-market VC-backed tech businesses that have 50 different tools in their tech stack versus larger enterprises that are still new to a lot of these ideas, are they 2 years behind, 5 years behind? If we think that the tech ecosystem in terms of awareness is probably 75% penetrated or saturated, is it 10% penetrated or saturated? Just in terms of awareness of the technology, awareness of what it exists, awareness of what it does. What's your perspective on the difference between true enterprise and where, me, AJ, and Asad spend all of our time?
It's a great question. I mean, it's a little bit of an overlap between, the tech vertical and then, enterprise versus earlier stage. So maybe I'll answer it this way, and you can hold me accountable if this is not a good enough answer to the question. It's a question that is worthy of a good answer. I do believe that in the next, call it 3 to 4 years, every go-to-market organization at any degree of scale will have two bookends in their tech stack. They'll have a system of record and a system of engagement. Those will be the two big bookends. And companies will buy them in a very similar way, and they will implement them with the same level of effort, and they'll focus this similar way in consumption. The big difference between these two is you'll have daily active users, weekly active users will drive a much higher penetration rate from an engagement perspective in the systems of engagement or revenue orchestration than they will in the systems of record. So I believe regardless of the industry that you are in, as long as it's B2B, we will find in just a few years, regardless of industry, if you are at scale, you need consistency and repeatability in how you execute. And you will require both a CRM and a revenue orchestration platform. Now, what I'll tell you today is the enterprise and how it overlaps sort of with the Venn diagram a little bit in industries is interesting. You can't go after the enterprise if your platform's not truly global. And what that means is you have to have full internationalization, you have to have full localization. AJ, as you know from the MarTech world, laws around data privacy in Europe are very different than the US.
David, just so you know, I started my company in 2013 and we
broke every law.
We broke every law. We didn't have password reset until 2016 and 2017, and that was okay.
Texas, so it was the Wild West how they did it.
I was emailing Nike's admin. I'm like, yeah, it's I love the swoosh. I don't know, that's your password. So yeah, different world, but point taken.
Yeah, and it's an interesting one, right? It is a different world. It is moving very, very quickly, but you can't be enterprise if you're not global. And global is not just in the product, but global is you have to actually have people around the world. We have customers like IBM that have users in over 30 countries. I have to be where they are. I have to do 24/7 support. I have to have people that can cover Europe, Asia Pacific, the globe. And so I think it's going to be, the companies in our space that have invested over the last few years in enterprise readiness have a huge advantage to this point, Sam. And depending on what our reach is and how big our ecosystem is, will somewhat dictate how fast we can get to those companies outside of tech and outside of, the core places we think of, San Francisco, New York, London, that type of thing. I do believe if we think back 20 years ago, companies that had a CRM and didn't have a CRM, it was very much the haves and the have-nots. If you did not have a CRM and your competitor did, you were likely in a really tough position to actually win. I think it will be the same thing in the next 2 years. I think if you don't have a revenue orchestration platform and your competitor does, you are going to be late to deals. You are not going to be able to drive the efficiency you need in cycle time and win rates and average deal size and retention and all of that. And you will find that it will be near impossible to compete. So, I don't know how fast this permeates what has historically been later stage adopters, but I do believe that there is a forcing function that's going to occur in the next few years. And I do think a lot of it is driven by buyer behavior. Sellers have to meet buyers where they're at today. And they're not where they were, AJ, in 2013 or 16. We weren't even where they were in 2020.
Yeah.
COVID changed everything. AI is changing everything. But sellers have to get to where the buyers are. They cannot wait for buyers to come to them.
Can I
think
ask
that's
one question? Not about the industry. I'm actually just because we only have a few minutes left with you. I've got a question, David, about just coming in as an outside CEO to an organization that had been led by a founder for so long. It sounds like you're doing an amazing job. What's your perspective? Like, for those of us, I'm a founder, AJ's a founder, Asad is an outside CEO for his company. But when you think about how do you drive success? What does success look like? What was your, I don't like 30, 60, 90 because I think that's too short a time frame. But when you think about your first year and making sure that you elevated the parts of the organization that Kyle did a great job of, where his strengths were, but then you also identified certain gaps where maybe you could add some expertise that hadn't been how do you think about success as an outsider coming in? Because we've all known SalesLoft as the company that Kyle started for as long as we've all been doing this. So it's just a really fascinating question for me, is because it feels very natural for you based on listening to you talk. What's your approach? How are you driving success?
Yeah, it's a great question. So look, Kyle was a phenomenal founder and CEO, and he built a beautiful brand, and he built a really, really strong culture. This company never would have allowed a new CEO in if it wasn't for Kyle actually inviting. If this was a situation where, Vista was pushing him out or pushing somebody else in, I don't think it would have worked. I never would have taken the job. Kyle was the one that actually recruited me. I've known him for a couple of years. I was a customer of ours, but Kyle was the one that recruited me, and much of my success here, and it's still early, so I wouldn't give me too good a grade yet, but a large reason why I have been able to be successful in the time I've been here is because of how Kyle introduced me to the business. That was huge. I will tell you, I know we're short on time. Here's what I did. I came in and I did a listening and learning tour. I met all the employees. I met as many customers as I possibly could. And one of the first things I did was focus the company around education and instrumentation. Instrumentation is critical because we have to know where we are at any given time because we're making a lot of decisions. We're moving very fast. The other is education. I do believe that if everything else is equal, the team that is the most educated team will win almost every time. So one of the first things I did was I grabbed our SE leader. I brought him in my office. I said, give me a demo environment. Let me see your demo. And I told him in 6 weeks, I will demo to all of your SEs. And I told all of our product and engineering leaders in 6 weeks, I will demo to all of you. And I think that's really important. I think if you can't establish credibility inside your company of deeply understanding what it is you build and how to use it, it's very hard to get people to follow. The second thing that we did was we took historically what were 9 sort of priorities of the business, and we whittled them down to just 4. And we said, look, we're going to focus on 4 areas this year, and that's it. And the intent was, we are in a down market. This is when we need to focus on getting better for scale. Because if we can get better in 23, we will get a lot bigger in 24, 25, and 26. And we will accelerate out of this downturn at a speed that far exceeds that of the competition. So that's what we did. And we do all hands every month, and we report out on this every single month. And then after a year, we actually had the opportunity to sit down and reassess our values as a company as well. They had not changed since this company was under 50 million. So that was how we approached year 1. We're approaching year 2. Well, year 1 was all about discipline. Year 2 is all about intentionality for us.
And intentionality in a way is like moving into the enterprise, making that a focus, the things that you articulated, which
acquiring the drift, company, doing the acquisition integration there, expanding the messaging now for both, driving repeatable outcomes across both buyers and sellers. You'll see you saw a big release from us last year in June on Rhythm. You'll see the next massive iteration around that with Arc in summer, fall of this year for us. You saw the big announcement with IBM. Not only are they a customer now, moving to 40,000
users. That was incredible. 40,000 users. That's amazing.
Yeah.
It was amazing. They've been with us since 2018. They started with BDRs, they moved to AEs, and now they went wall to wall. But one of the aspects that we see in the enterprise is a lot of enterprise companies are big IBM users. And IBM is investing a massive amount in Watson X. And we do know that going in the enterprise, there's a lot that we still have to determine in terms of who's going to win in the AI space. And it won't be just one company. But big enterprises, some are Microsoft shops, some are Google shops, some are IBM shops, and some of them will not use AI from their competitor. And so we have to architect this platform in a way that has our own native AI, but can also plug and play other AIs, AI platforms that are consumed in the enterprise. So the IBM deal afforded us the ability to do that. So we have our own AI, we have OpenAI, secured through Azure. Now we have Watson X. If you want that SKU, that's being built out right now as well. But I think it's important as we go into the enterprise to make sure that we can coexist within their application ecosystem as much as possible, minimize the change required by them. And it affords us the ability, to play in multiple different AI camps, because I don't think anyone knows who's going to be the best in that. And what might be the best in terms of being purpose-built for one thing might not necessarily be great for another use case.
Amazing. David, it's been amazing having you on the show. We're mindful of time. Really, really impressed. I think you impressed all of us, and we're really excited for the future.
I think your answers were pretty good. They were pretty good.
Well, it's just the difference between having somebody that's done it before and that has like an operating playbook, and all of us who are making it up as we go along for the first time. So really appreciate you joining.
Of course, Evan. I'll tell you, look, one of the things I love about this is, in as you went through early, Mike, I've done just about every job that we build product for. I've been an SDR, I've been a BDR. I was a not very good database engineer very early on, so I at least understand how data moves around. I was an AE, I was, an RVP, a chief customer officer, a CRO, and all of those things. So it's really fun, because look, when we did this 20 years ago, it was hard. It's still hard today, but we can make it a little easier for sellers and AMs and CSMs and BDRs. And I think that's a very cool way to spend my time, frankly, is building something that just makes sales a little bit easier for the seller themselves, who I think has a very fun, but a very challenging job and a broad remit. But also if the average tenure of a CRO, I think is under 2 years. It's like 1.8 years or something. And it's because you fail to find consistency and repeatability. You fail to get your entire go-to-market organization up-leveled in a way that they are performing with consistency. And that's a tough place to be. And what we are building directly focuses on that for everyone from the IC to the RevOps leader to the CRO, all the way up to the CFO and CEO. So it's a very cool endeavor. It's a lot of fun. It's a great company. Kyle built something amazing here, and it's been fun to sort of take the reins and expand both globally and new markets. And
I feel not to put anybody down, but I feel like maybe the company was in a different position a couple years ago, but now even just talking to you, I feel like the race is changing and you're emerging as the leader if you're not already the clear leader, and it's actually really exciting to watch. So congratulations.
Yeah, thanks, Sam.
Yeah,
we look forward to having you back and checking in maybe once a quarter. Yeah, that'll be fun.
Yeah, you'll be doing it from your office in Japan, I guess, handling IBM customers there.
Well, I'm in Atlanta today, where our headquarters is, but I actually live in New York. So maybe it'll be New York next time. We'll see. I'm heading back up there tonight. So, but I appreciate the time. This was great. This was a lot of fun. Love to do it again. Thank you so much for the invite.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks, David.
You bet. Take care.
What do the revenue leaders at Google, 3M, IBM, Shopify, Square, and Cisco have in common? Their teams all use SalesLoft to hit their number. SalesLoft is the only platform that's designed for the way revenue teams work every day, so sellers can prioritize and take the right actions to get more deals done. From prospecting and deal management to coaching and forecasting. No more guesswork, no more wasted time on non-selling activities. Follow SalesLoft on LinkedIn to learn more.
Wow.
Pretty cool.
He's good. There's a clarity of thought and such conviction as he speaks. It's so impressive just to hear him articulate where this business needs to go, what it's going to take to win. And you can't articulate things that clearly unless you've got a real grasp on the situation and what needs to be done. And you can see sometimes the benefits of careers that have been so, a 30-year career where he's done every role. This was the conversation him and I were having last week or the week before, which is that he's like, I've done every role. I know how hard this is. I know what needs to be done. I have an intimate understanding of the people whose problems we're solving. And that plus all those other experiences, seeing it come together here, that was really cool.
Did Salesforce really invent CS? Is that a true statement? I didn't know that.
There is a competing story to that, because Winning by Design published a paper in which they spoke about customer success as a profit center. In that, Jocko said the first CS team was built at a company. It was a CRM company in the 1990s called Veritiv, I think. But who knows? Most of the roles in our go-to-market teams were invented at Salesforce.
Yeah, I overall.
Go ahead, AJ.
Go ahead, Sam. No, go ahead, Sam.
No, you go ahead.
No, this is look. I come back and I get the
God, guys. Okay, somebody say it.
I will say that that system of system of work, system of engagement, and then that was a great answer. I know he said that wasn't.
That's literally what you said about that HubSpot. That's the way HubSpot thinks. System of record.
The third piece to that is the system of intelligence. Yeah, exactly. So
I think it's just, honestly, it's just what I was thinking as he's talking, I
because you enjoyed this conversation. I could see it.
I was listening because I'm thinking about this stuff all the time. We've talked about it on the show about moving into the enterprise and what it means and consolidation. And I was just thinking about, and I hate saying this because they're my friends, but it just feels like for a long time I felt like Outreach was the clear winner in this space and was distancing itself from SalesLoft based on the thing that David said, which was the pace of and quality. I love that he said the pace and quality of innovation. And I felt like Outreach had the better product, but I feel like the muscle that David brings to SalesLoft. And so what I'm really correlating this to is Vista's acquisition of SalesLoft.
Yeah.
Where it feels
sharp acquisition.
It feels I'm saying they're clearly adding value.
Yeah.
Like, most of the time you say, what does it matter what's in the cap table? I know that Outreach has a big, diverse cap table of some of the best investors in the world, but Vista has a playbook and Vista has a point of view on the world. And it's just very interesting because the sense that I get from having two different conversations, first of all, because I know Manny and I've seen him and I love him, but the enthusiasm and optimism that David was expressing was very different.
You don't see it from that team.
I haven't seen it from the other side. And the confidence of execution of this is how you go into the enterprise. This is what it's going to take. This is why we're going to invest in customer success. 40,000 users with this IBM deal, which is really incredible. It just keeps making me think. I don't have large enterprise sales experience. I don't have that. And I just always wonder if that's a missing skill set in my organization, because it's just something I've never done a 40,000 seat deal with IBM or anything close to it.
You know something interesting? Some of the first few BDRs ever at IBM were placed by sales talent agency.
Oh, well, look at that.
Full circle.
Yeah. There's also this really, Sam, what you said is so interesting, because if you actually look at this category war, and that's what's happening, which is why we're bringing these people in and having these conversations, because this is a fascinating category war happening in our world, and we have this front row seat to it. And he's put a timeline to it. I love that there's a timeline. 18 months, we're going to see who has clear advantage. you've also got this dynamic of VC funded, a VC funded approach, founder led. In actually all of those cases, all three of those companies are founder led, versus a PE based approach with a non-founder CEO being brought in. And I think that's really interesting because you would generally think that the VC side has so much more money, they'll throw money at the problem and they will get ahead. But they do say constraints drive better decisions, better thinking, more discipline. And having one major party own your cap table versus having so many people involved in a venture funded board, I think that actually is really interesting, where you start noticing if these guys get the strategy right, the rest of the dynamics might be in their favor. That's so interesting.
The thing that David's been in that BDR role, the AE role, but he's also seen the Salesforce move to the enterprise, or Yammer as a product-led growth company sell to Microsoft and sell these large enterprise deals. So both as a seller and from a like go-to-market, I was really impressed. I'd bet on that guy. I coming into this conversation, I think a lot of us have talked about it was like, oh, Drift and SalesLoft combining two companies that Vista's just trying to like smash together. But then you hear the strategy behind it and I'm like, oh, that makes a lot of sense.
The way I feel listening to that guy, but David, but also there's a type of person that I recognize, and I hate to sound so self-deprecating, but I just feel like that's not me. That's not even my temperament. There's a discipline to how he approaches his day. There's a discipline of thought and a clarity of thought. And I feel like I am, that's just
Listen, I think sometimes we self-deprecate like this. I hung out with David a lot, right? In the like before. David's as wild as we are. Like we had a 30 minute call, but he canceled another meeting. We spoke about diving for like another 20 minutes. Like David's a guy, like he's just a normal person like us with 30 years of career experience, who's super intelligent, super sharp, and has the benefit of that experience that is allowing him to develop this level of conviction where he can articulate it so beautifully. But you've also articulated many things beautifully.
I hope his communications director isn't listening to this part of this.
Listen, I'm a good communicator. I'm a good articulator, but my mind and my temperament are just not, they're just all over the place, and my point is like, there's a certain kind of person that is just, and I think AJ is closer to this kind of person, just a calmer personality, a more stable personality, somebody that likes,
I can't wait for Ange to hear this feedback, my wife to hear this feedback.
I know that you feel like you're up and down, AJ, but I don't know, there's just a certain kind, and it's often like these ex-Salesforce guys, it's like these, and I know he lives in New York, but like it just reminds me of like this Northern California guy, where it's like they're just so disciplined. They wake up at 6 and they go for their exercise and they have their beautiful family and they've only been married once and it's all it's all beautiful. And I live my life and it's such a disaster. And I'm like, maybe I can never go into the enterprise.
That's the best comment ever. He goes for diving a lot. Like his biggest passion is deep sea diving. And we were talking about it and he's like, I just don't think about anything else when I'm diving. He's like, when you're there, and he was showing me some of the stuff he's done, which is like insane. Like, think of however deep you think a person can go. This guy goes deeper than that, for longer than that, more. He's that type of intense person. And so he's like, I like doing it because it forces me to get out of my mind and focus on the present. And if I do that often enough, I bring back the right energy to everything else I do. And it's something I struggle with. Like, when I take a break, I realize at the end of that break, I was like, ooh, this was great. Like, I need to do this more often. And then when you're in the thick of it, it's really hard to prioritize these things. Like, I even sometimes fall off from going for a run or going to the gym as often as I want to. And you just have to keep reminding yourself, that's the stuff that makes you good at this other thing.
Yeah, I think, Sam, you're being too hard on yourself a little bit. But I also would say that to Asad's point, and Adam made a great post, Adam from reputation.com, on this very thing after being a CEO.
Got you.
Reputation. I said
retention. What is reputation.com?
It was a competitor to Trendkite back in the day. So no idea where that came from. Retention.com. Sorry, Adam Robinson. And he made the post about a therapist, a coach, and I forget what the third point around was.
But the third thing.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just being able to make time and space. I actually had I'll talk transparently and vulnerably here. I had a great CEO coach meeting with my CEO coach, Glenn. I've talked about in the show before at the beginning of the year, beginning of the week. And I'll tell you guys, I was feeling super unmotivated coming into this week where I'd just gotten off an RV trip. I had read a book. I felt so great about yeah, exactly. And I was like, man, I'm looking at my calendar and my schedule. I do not like it. And I was like, you know what? I'm canceling 2 hours of meetings every afternoon, and I'm going for a 6-mile run in the afternoon because I love running in the afternoon. And I just came back from that run today, and I feel so much more energized and so much more motivated. But it was an hour, so the 30-minute, 35-minute, 40-minute run, and then 20 minutes to decompress. The 20 minutes to decompress was really, really helpful coming into this conversation with you two lovely gentlemen. So don't be so hard on yourself, Sam. We're all. I think the other part of this is he has it together is because he's seen so much. I've
seen a lot. I just, it's okay. I love myself. I love being alive. I'm proud of what I've built, but I just feel, I feel like I'm too artistic sometimes, and I'm not in love enough with process. And that even
I'm
when
very much like Sam in this.
When I go for
I
a
have
run,
the same internal dialogue.
When I go for a run, sometimes I'm like, this is the route that I'm going to do. And then I never follow it. I just turn. And it's just so emblematic of my life where it's like, I keep searching for routine.
Why am I in Long Island?
I'm like, oh, well, I guess I'll turn. Now this feels more right today. Anyway,
love it.
Go ahead, Austin.
Are we going to cover
a tactical question, which is how often do you guys? Because I just did this as well. AJ, you just mentioned this. What is the right way for an executive as well as founders and CEOs to prune their calendars? Like, how often are we supposed to look at it and get it right? Because it gets out of hand, right? Like the calendar just materializes into this thing that you look at and you feel so anxious about the week. And it's not because we don't love what we do. We're just it's clear in our face that we're not spending the time the right way. I just went through a pretty big reset with the calendar. Just curious, how often do you think one has to do this? What tips and tricks that you guys have? Sam, you?
I mean, dude, I was just thinking about this because I'm in love with Tim Ferriss right now. I mean, I always like him, but I've been following him on X, and he's just been really self-helpy in a way that's resonated. Yeah. And he's talked about if you're busy, busyness is a function of a lack of prioritization. Busyness is your inability to decide what's important. And if you look at my calendar, and I've got this thing where I have my Calendly link in my Slack profile in Pavilion, and it's and on the one hand, it's a lot of it's conversations with random people, some of whom are Pavilion members, and I still feel like that's important for me to stay connected to the market and to understand what's going on. A lot of it's internal meetings, a lot of it's podcasts and content, but it's still true that there were a few days recently where there was nothing on the calendar, and it was magical and amazing.
Beautiful. Yeah.
And I can't. So anyway, I was literally about to do this beginning next week, because I'm trying to. I read this book, going 10x is easier than 2x, and thinking about what are the things that I really like doing, what are the things that I want to do more of, and I think we can all agree. I have fun doing this with you guys. Yeah. I have fun creating content. I don't have fun doing a lot of internal kind of management stuff. Yeah. And so I'm like, how do I but to do all of that, you have to say no. People have to say, can I get 5 minutes? Can I get 20 minutes with you? And you have to be willing to say no. I mean, you have to find a nice way to say it.
Yeah, I'm booking this in June. So I've gotten comfortable doing that. I push things out. I'll look at this conversation and say, okay, what's the priority here? And if it doesn't, if I am quite maniacal now about suggesting things 2 months, 3 months away. And on the day and within the time slots that matter to me. So like I'll do a lot of those type of calls in the last 2 hours of a Friday. But I won't do them like middle of a Tuesday or middle of a Wednesday.
I think it's the tolerance. What you allow, you encourage. Someone way smarter than me once told me that, Sam.
Interesting.
So if you allow, Sam might have said that a few times, but even goes back to your calendar. So if you allow people to book on your calendar in that way, you're going to encourage it. My process to do this is Sunday mornings. I love going over operational review of the company and then putting that into our Asana, which is where we manage all of that for Monday meetings, and doing my calendar. Like I actually really look forward to it. And I ultimately don't have overlaps. I color coordinate and I delete meetings that are just like, I'm going to punt this to June. I'm just going to do it. And it is what it is. And I'm not going to feel guilty about it and be okay. I'm not going to make excuses. The reality of the situation is I have a board meeting next week. I have a management offsite the week after that. I have a conference, CRO summit upcoming in the next month and a half.
CMO summit's next week. You're the head of marketing. You got to come.
What is this?
I know all the marketing tricks, Sam. I know everything there is about marketing. Like board meetings next week. So we got the challenge there. But I just think it's being okay and just finding. I had an hour of space a day, and I need to up that for 2 hours just for my own process. The other thing, Sam, I'll say that I don't know if this will help anyone, but Osid has given me compliments on over the last year. I found my love of writing. I really enjoy writing and being meticulous and being really clear. And being really clear has helped me prioritize. I don't know, Sam. It looks like you're finding your love of writing right now.
Morning pages I've been doing, which is 3 pages. Doesn't have to be coherent, but just 3 pages every day.
I love that. Does it work? How's that go? How long have you been doing that?
About a week and a half. If I get good sleep, do morning pages, and exercise, it's probably going to be a pretty good day.
It's a great day.
That's the formula.
There's the answer. Just do that.
So I rarely have the good sleep portion. So I try the writing I get done every morning. I'm actually starting with reading a page or 2 or 3 of any book that's like a nice chill way to start the day. Then I write. But if I haven't slept well, it's hard to work out properly. And so it's interesting. If you can get those 3 things in, you feel like a superhero. If you do a week like that will take over the world. It's just hard to do it.
Should we go to shout outs and wins of the week?
Yeah. Let's do it.
I'm enthusiastic. Everything's not as fun when David leaves. All right. Who wants to go first?
I'll go. I'm reading this really interesting book. It's the Boron Letters. I think that's how you pronounce it, but forgive me if the pronunciation is wrong. I was born in Pakistan. But the book is basically this guy who was a copywriting expert, and he went to jail. And from jail, he wrote a daily letter to his son, teaching his son the art of copywriting, as well as the art of life, how to live well. And that's the book that I'm reading every morning. And I swear, it is such a great, I read one of the letters every morning. It is firstly from a technical perspective, the copywriting advice is so good. And this is from decades ago, but it's so relevant and it's so good. He has so much swagger in how he writes, and it's so engaging. And seeing how people used to capture attention, the art and the science of capturing attention back in the day, it's very informative. And then to see the warmth in his affection towards his son, that's really cool. So I think it's a great book. If anyone's trying to improve their writing, that's why I bought it. I would suggest it. So that's mine.
Love it. AJ?
My shout out, I'm going to give the shout out to someone I've given a shout out to and is avid listener. It's my brother, Eric Bruno.
Eric.
So
our
Eric's
favorite resident bleeding heart liberal.
Yes, he always has feedback for Sam on his comments. So Eric saw the picture of me in my ice plunge about 8 months ago and decided to do something about that and built me a full-size ice plunge. Spent 400 hours, he said, on this. Yeah.
400 hours.
400 hours.
I don't
It
even
was
know
a
if my
passion
parents
project.
spent 400 hours parenting me. That's a lot. Like,
One of the nicest things he doesn't want anything in return, and he's just delivered it last night, and it weighs 2,000 pounds.
no wonder he's your favorite brother. Like,
we had to take a crane and to put it down, and I'll take a picture of it and post it on LinkedIn as an update to the ice plunge that I have.
Eric is a cool man.
Sam?
Mine, let's see. I'm going to give my shout out to Chip Knighty. Chip is a member of the CEO Pavilion. He is moderating a lot of our stage-based revenue groups, and he's also a coach. And I've just gotten to know him over the course of the last couple of months and even years. He was one of the first members of the he's part of the Alpha Group, or at least he joined shortly thereafter. And he was talking about how CEO Summit this year in Scottsdale was amazing, and how it's now the second year that he's been, and it felt like he was connecting with all these friends, and he's just a big champion for Pavilion. So Chip, thank you very much. I also want to give a shout out to Perry Fetterman. So why am I giving a shout out to Perry? Because Perry's been a member of Pavilion for 7 years. Can you believe it? Since 2017.
Wow.
And he was one of the very first groups of people to come to dinner in New York. At that time, he was leading sales for Kaltura. And now he's in a career transition, thinking about what he wants to do next. But it was just great reconnecting with him. And I reconnected with him through the new feature we have within Pavilion called Pavilion Connections, that makes matches based on
so cool.
the kinds of people that you want to connect with. The CEO group it's being rolled out this coming Monday. So check your emails, Asad and AJ.
That is so cool.
Connect, because we got
Sam, do you get like a diamond plaque or something that you're sending to Perry? You get like a giant gold.
I should. Something should happen.
Yeah.
Something should happen. I don't know what it is. But anyway, so those are my two shout outs. And also to my father, I'm here taking care of him this week. And he just got a clean bill of health on his eye surgery, which is fantastic. And I also always appreciate that even when he sees me doing something, that doesn't matter. He feels totally I'll be able to interrupt and
Daddy Jacobs.
I've seen you look over a couple times, Sam.
My house.
He's me recording. He walks up. He's like, wants to talk, and I can clear that he's got like 3 seconds of patience, and it's not. We're not going to make it. It's not recording. It's not going to happen. Anyway, he wanted to let me know that he's reading outside, so that's good to know.
That's awesome.
Thanks,
Daddy Jacobs.
This was a great episode. This is a new listener episode. If you're just trying to get your feet wet into Topline, listen to this episode.
Oh, well, thanks. That's a good. I think all our episodes are pretty good, actually. By the way, well, no, they'll hear it after this. If you missed it, we did a LinkedIn Live last week. When you're hearing this, you're listening to this on Sunday or Monday, and we announced our new Slack channel. It's got over 100
Get in the
people in it.
Slack.
It's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
It's pretty awesome,
pretty
and we're all connecting with each other, sharing ideas and insights. It's great. All right, everybody, listen to us on Thursday for Topline Hotline. Thanks for listening.
And that's a wrap for today's episode, brought to you by SalesLoft. SalesLoft helps revenue teams take the right actions to close every deal with the only platform built around the seller's day. Visit salesloft.com to learn how the world's top revenue teams hit their number by using SalesLoft. Thanks for listening to Topline. New episodes come out every Sunday. If you like what you heard today, subscribe so you never miss an episode, leave a 5-star review, and share it with your friends. Don't forget to join our Topline Slack channel to connect with us and discuss the topics we cover with other listeners. Click the link in the show notes. Lastly, if you're interested in joining Pavilion, you can learn more about membership at joinpavilion.com/membership. Thanks again for listening.